Right then, welcome back to the channel. In recent episodes of How to Fix Manchester United, I have looked at the finances. I have looked at whether the manager is the right man to lead the club going forward. And I've looked at what we needed to do in the very next window so we can be competitive next year. But that's not enough. What we have to do is completely overhaul the club in a way that's going to turn Manchester United into a dominant force for the next decade. A way for us to get back to the top. So I've laid out a roadmap. 7 different pillars that are going to be crucial to the club's long-term success. And I'll lay them out and then I'll explain how I would, if appointed. Do you know what? Call it what you want. Call it this, Steve's pitch to be the next director of football at Manchester United and what I would do. Vote Steve, right? The 7 different areas that we need to improve. Number 1, data-driven player recruitment and scouting. Number 2, academy development and a strong youth pathway. Number 3, a loan strategy and club partnerships that allow us to develop those academy players and the youth pathway. 4, tactical innovation and elite performance analysis. Number 5, sports science and injury prevention, because if you look at recent years, that's one of the biggest things that's really hampered Manchester United. Number 6, cultural and leadership development, because that's massive. And number 7, long-term operation and a little bit on the financial stability. That sound good? Each of those pillars reinforces the others. It's going to be a bold, hopefully grounded approach, looking at some proven models from around the world and innovation that's going to be taken from football and beyond. So let's delve into each of the different domains and look at how we're going to transform each department. Number 1, data-driven player recruitment and global scouting. Now, building a modern scouting machine requires our recruitment to be modernized. We're going to have to blend human expertise with cutting-edge data analysis. You can't just go on the pure data and you can't just go off the so-called eye test. United have to scout better than our rivals, smarter than our rivals. We have to uncover talent before they hit the mainstream. And to do this, we have to develop a global scouting network that is powered by both advanced metrics and technology. We need to invest in platforms, things like WeScout, the very, very base level, but there's going to be loads more information like that and platforms like that available that I don't even know about. You know, WeScout, for example, has got video and data from 600 competitions worldwide, which means that you can go and look at every corner of the globe sitting in the office in Carrington. There's got to be other ways of doing that. Finding the evidence in that data-driven approach means no prospect gets overlooked. We flag potential targets through data. We evaluate them using video and statistics. And then we dispatch coaches to go and look and see what they're like, see what the level of opposition that they're playing against is like, and see if it matches up with the sort of characteristics that we want to bring in to the club. United should be sending scouts not just to Europe, but Africa, Asia, South America. Everywhere there's a football pitch and someone playing, we should be there, armed with a database of performance metrics, AI-driven data insights, and hunting for the next star for Manchester United. And yes, Moneyball with a United twist. Data should inform every single decision, just as the way you see with Brighton and Brentford have thrived exploiting market inefficiencies, identifying undervalued players and using sophisticated metrics. We need to do the same. Brighton's success is not a fluke. They literally planned for this. They target young players with an above-average talent who are undervalued in the market, often those with little to no experience playing in the top leagues, and they mould them to fit a clear tactical role. We adopt those principles, but we do it on a bigger scale. For example, Brighton signed Moise Caicedo, £4 million, sold him for £100 million. That sort of value creation starts with astute scouting. United can do the same, but rather than selling those stars, they're integrated into the first team and only sold if we have to. We use data analysis to sift through the leagues worldwide, from the Belgian Pro League to the Brazilian Serie A, and we find players that are excelling in certain metrics: chance creation, ball recoveries, XG. Find the ones that are underappreciated. We look for qualities that traditional scouting might miss, the sort of hidden gems that Moneyball identifies in baseball. Midtjylland in Denmark, absolutely famous for doing this. Use deep analytics. Things like expected goals and even pre-assists can really help. You can find bargains that shatter the old scouting myths. Midtjylland are a small club and they won multiple titles by outthinking their opponents, not just outplaying them. We bring that level of intellect and rigor to United's recruitment, and the impact is sensational. Midtjylland chairman Rasmus Ankersen, he used to be a former professional gambler, and he said, football often misjudges players. Data help cut through the bias. Our scouting team should include data scientists, AI specialists, and traditional football scouts who know football, ensuring that subjective eye test observations are backed up by objective data. We have to have a global network with local expertise. There's no point sending a scout from Salford to go to Sao Paulo. You need to have the guy in Sao Paulo know everything that's going on there and then get a second pair of eyes from the guy from Salford. We'll restructure the scouting department into regional cells, each with local experts supported by that analysis. South American cell might try and leverage contacts in Brazil, Argentina, Ecuador, Uruguay, similar to how Brighton successfully tapped the Ecuadorian and Argentinian markets. They found technical talent that fits their style, embedded them patiently into the first team. We can do likewise. Identify youngsters with the technical skill and a football IQ that suits what United are trying to play like, regardless of their passport. The key is knowing what we're looking for. That's the big thing. We have to define what the Manchester United DNA is in measurable terms, whether that's high work rate, and you look at distance covered, repeatable sprints, creativity, is that expected assists, key passes, whether that's mental resilience, errors recovered from. If a player checks the boxes and statistically fits the tactical needs, we go scout them live. Fuse the numbers with real scouting intuition. We reduce expensive mistakes like Anthony. It's telling to me that Brighton's approach is systematic. It's not luck. United can implement a custom data analysis platform that tracks targets and predicts their development curve. If you spent 100 million developing the world's greatest AI-based data analysis center, one transfer pays for it. One transfer. That's it. We can examine different metrics like PPDA, pressures that lead to turnovers. We find aggressive pressers for our attack. You look at the XG and the XA to find the efficient attackers that are outperforming it. You use cutting edge metrics like expected pass accuracy, and you highlight the creative passes who attempt those difficult passes that others won't. You go advanced in the stats and you go far beyond what most fans discuss, because that is your job when you're trying to get an edge in competitive scouting. And we learn from the smaller clubs and we learn from other sports. We borrow the successful ideas from anywhere that we can. I don't care if it's hockey, if it's competitive wrestling or show jumping. Brentford scrapped their academy and were laughed at. And they did that to focus on data-led recruitment. They used algorithms to find talent that was undervalued by others, and it propelled them for the championship to the Premier League. Midtjylland, which is Brentford's sister club, used data to dominate Denmark, even hiring a throwing coach to optimize that tiny facet of play. And that level of detail paid off with a remarkable trophy haul. We'll cultivate that mindset. There is no edge too small. If a second division team in South America has an innovative scouting software, we want to know about it. If there's an NBA team that uses machine learning to project a college player's growth, we want to apply that to a 17-year-old goalkeeper. The Oakland A's Moneyball revolution taught sports to value on-base percentage over traditional stats. In football, our equivalent might be valuing expected goal involvements or pressing efficiency in a player that is more than just goals or assists. Those who internalize those insights will start winning in the recruitment new era. But while data guides us into the talent, we're not going to neglect the person, because I think that's something that United maybe missed on with someone like Sancho. You have to find the person behind the numbers. What is a player's mentality, professionalism, coachability, big game temperament? That's all pivotal. From here, we take inspiration from Sir Alex Ferguson's approach to assessing character. He would invite transfer targets, he'd put a video on of their worst moments and then ask them, what happened here? And he's not actually interested in the mistake himself, but in their reaction. Does the player own up to his errors? Does he talk about his mistakes? Is he able to go, do you know what? Yeah, I did that, and then I learned from this, and I did that and the other. It's brilliant in its simplicity. And Sir Alex Ferguson was like some PhD sort of manager that could read players' temperament and understand what it took to build a team together. We have to learn from that. He's one of the best in the world at doing it. Any little insights like that we can steal from Sir Alex Ferguson, we have to systematize and bring them into our operation manual. It weeds out those with fragile egos. It highlights those with resilience and self-awareness. Incorporate that into similar psychological profiling for transfers, for our academy prospects, and even into the first team itself. You put all of that together, and every single potential signing undergoes an interview, perhaps with some sort of modernized stress tests. You ask them for tactical problem solving, maybe on an iPad, or even put them in a VR simulator to see what they can do. See how they handle the adversity. See how they handle the coach's feedback. Data can flag ability. Scouts can see if they've got a first touch. But mentality is what allows a player to be a Manchester United player, and the difference between a Beckham, a Giggs, a Scholes, and someone who didn't quite make it. Ferguson had those players in the class of 92. And he had them write self-critiques about their best and worst games, then face mock press interviews about it. Sir Alex was a genius. And these results are telling. Those players were brutally honest with themselves. They've shown humility and drive to improve. And we'll bring that philosophy back. The recruitment will favour the players that show accountability and hunger to grow, not those who think that wearing that Manchester United badge means that they've made it. What do you get from that? You get a pipeline of talent. 2 or 3 years of implementing that model, United will build an overflowing pipeline of resilient winners. You have the next Bruno Fernandes identified a year before he burst onto the scene. You have the next Haaland on our books when he's 15. And crucially, those recruits fit not just the tactical vision, but the mental profile to play for Manchester United. We don't sign players without a plan for their role. Brighton's first rule is to ensure that our signing's skill set and age align with what the team is trying to do from a tactical structure. At United, every target needs to be vetted for how they serve the team first and the style. And I'll talk about that in the tactics in a minute. Be proactive. Use the data. You reduce the transfer fee wastage. You buy them before the whole world sees the value in them. The wage bills are low because they're young, hungry players, and they're not going to cost you as much as a global superstar is going to. In short, this approach allows us to refresh the squad continuously with talent that can push the first team players without spending recklessly. United have spent $1 billion in the last 10 years, but where's that value on the pitch? You have to set the foundation for sustained success. Number 2, academy development and the youth pathway. Now, reinstating the United tradition is going to be the biggest thing. And I think we've already started doing this, to be honest. United's tradition is built on youth development. From the Busby Babes to the class of 92, this principle will be front and centre of the rebuild. And United need to build and craft a world-leading academy system that not just produces players for the first team, but well-rounded human beings that litter the rest of the football pyramid. And the philosophy of that is clear. Develop players with technique, intelligence, character, and an ingrained love for the club. We're going to draw inspiration from the best academies worldwide. Ajax, La Masia in Barcelona, La Zema in Bilbao. And then we add our own innovations into it. Our academy needs to treat academic education, personal growth, and football training as independent parts of the whole. Ajax famously recognized that academic and sporting development of youth players go hand in hand. They built a school right at their training ground and integrated a Montessori-style approach. They allow each youngster to progress at their own pace with guidance from expert tutors. We will establish a similar on-site education program at Carrington, or we should. Young players will have access to classrooms and tutors so they can continue their schooling without sacrificing their training time. By investing in their education, you produce smarter players on the pitch and better rounded individuals off it. The club can coordinate timetables so the football curriculum and academic curriculums complement each other. You can have tactical video sessions in place of a school leadership class. You can analyse a game whilst also teaching critical thinking. Every single academy scholars development plan should be unique to them. One size does not fit all. One boy might be physically mature at 16, another might not be till he's 21. One might be a future leader who needs more challenges, more pressure. Another might need confidence building. The young coaches need to be highly paid experts in their field that craft individualized programs to nurture that trajectory. We got to spend money on this, really spend money on this. And that could mean flexible age group assignments, promoting a 15-year-old to the under-18s, allowing a late bloomer to stay in the under-18s a little bit longer. Ajax actually recategorized their youth system into really broad bands: 9 to 12, 12 to 15, 15 to 19. Multiple coaches sharing larger groups rather than a rigid single-year team. It encourages peer-to-peer learning. It challenges, but also allows for those that need a little bit longer time. And it brings in truly exceptional players up to play against older kids. United can adopt that. There's got to be more fluid movement between the age groups based on player needs, overseen by a player pathway development manager that's going to ensure nobody slips through the cracks. When you look at the percentages of players that go on and actually make it to Manchester United first team from those that walk through the door at Carrington, and it's 0.01%, we are not doing enough. We have to be better with the raw materials that come to us. And that starts with elite coaching. Developing world-class players requires world-class coaches and world-class coaching methods. We have to go out and pay, not to the executives. I don't want to see executives on $5 million a year and coaches on minimum wage. That almost needs to be flipped on its head. Find those former players. Find your Ruud van Nistelrooys and your Patrice Evras and get them into Carrington and get them understanding our values and get them teaching it to those kids. Give them ongoing education in the latest training science. Incorporate modern training tools that give them an edge. For example, Borussia Dortmund uses the Football Now, 360-degree shooting machine that trains reaction, first touch, awareness, and it's fantastic. It seemed like a gimmick when it was brought in a year ago. Now it's an absolute staple, and nobody else has brought it in. Dortmund puts their players in there 15 minutes at a go, and they get more touches in that 15 minutes than the whole week of matches. Let's explore acquiring a Football Now or building one. In Dortmund's system, players at age 11 start cognitive training, focusing on vision and scanning the field. They measure how quickly a kid can progress from stimuli from the left to the right versus the right to the left. And many youngsters initially scan poorly over one shoulder versus the other. How mad's that? Data which coaches use then to train weaknesses. And that's how you develop better players. Attention to detail. Details matter. Our academy can implement cognitive drills to improve field awareness. We can use VR training. In fact, Dortmund recently introduced VR software called Be Your Best, which allows players to train wherever they want, and they can scan for all different pieces of information just using a headset. A player experiences a simulated game, and they can put them in repeated scenarios. Maybe you're a centre-half that actually struggles at corners. Let's put you in 50 different corners from a real-world example and see what your decision-making is like in real-world environments. It's fantastic. If Manchester United wanted to do this, I think companies would be throwing themselves to partner with us. And United could be one of the leaders at the forefront of this technology, so our kids grow up with a real sense of both scanning and spatial awareness, but all of those different traits that can separate a good player from a great one. And we should use data tracking in training. Academy sessions, every training session, every exercise, we should have metrics. We can attach sensors to boots. We can count touches. We can look at pass speeds. We can look at distances covered. We can look at the speed at which they run, the speed at which they recover. Dortmund did that in the Football Now sessions. Each session collects data on how many left touches versus how many right touches, the precision, the speed of execution. Over time, you build benchmarks. We know in 5 years' time of having our own Football Now that if you've got a striker and you get him in the Football Now and you run him through the striker program, the best ones hit X number of seconds to complete it. If the prospect is doing it a little bit behind that, you know which areas he needs to improve and you get him that improvement. Every youth player should have a development dashboard that tracks their technical, physical, and cognitive KPIs. Coaches and the player themselves should be able to see and access that on an iPad somewhere. Maybe a defender needs to improve weak foot passing, or a striker's reaction time needs work, or a midfielder needs to improve his endurance. By quantifying the data in training, you remove some of the subjectivity and you ensure that you're developing a complete player. Now, all academy teams play in a way that mirrors the first team. That's generally how it does. I'm not actually seen that with United since Amrim's come, but maybe that's because it's a mid-season thing. If the first team is built on quick transitions and a high press, the 18s and the 21s should be coached with the exact same triggers and patterns of play. If our vision for the senior side is attacking possession-based football, which I believe it should be, then all of the youth teams have to be comfortable in tight spaces, playing out from the back and making decisions under pressure. La Masia famously instills positional play and one-touch passing from the 5 and 6-year-olds that first find themselves there. Midfielders like Xavi, Iniesta, and obviously Messi come out with extraordinary game IQ. You articulate a clear Manchester United playing philosophy document that all coaches, all players emphasise, and we have technical excellence and creativity. Every academy session should include small-sided games, 3v3, 5v5, 7v7. Maximise the touches, encourage quick combination play, taking a page from the Ajax Barcelona book, but also look at versatility. Look at what Athletic Bilbao do. Look at the youth players they bring through because they have to be a bit more patient with them. They try them in multiple different positions to try and round out their understanding. You're a youth striker. Today you're left back. Tomorrow you're a winger. So you can see the game from those different angles. By the time a player reaches the under-21s, he should be a complete footballer, technically proficient, tactically savvy, physically developed, and mentally resilient. And equally important is framing the right mentality. We want United Academy graduates to be humble, hard-working, and leaders. Take a cue from the All Blacks rugby team, one of my favourite books, Legacy. They have a whole section on culture in that. Incorporate some of those practices that instill discipline and respect. Something as simple as making the youth team players clean their own dressing room or carry equipment. Keeps egos in check. I feel like something that's gotten out of hand with the academy since, not just our academy, all academies, since academy players have been allowed to have agents. In New Zealand, they call it sweeping the sheds. The captain of New Zealand will be sweeping his own dressing room. Nobody looks after the All Blacks. They look after themselves. Our senior players can serve as mentors. An academy striker could, periodically shadow the first team striker in training or analysis sessions to understand what it is that he's working on 10 years into the future. We should offer sports psychology support for the academy. Teenagers are coming out with all sorts of different stresses in life, dealing with their hormones, probably dealing with moving away from home, the pressure and expectation of playing for Manchester United. They need to learn mental coping skills that are going to help them handle big crowds and pressure and life. We might run workshops on mindset. We might look at examples, outliers like Cristiano Ronaldo, how they obsessively practiced and how people handled the breakthrough pressure of being a United Academy graduate. And as we mentioned, on-site schooling for this could be key. But beyond formal education, you've got to teach them life skills. There's a great clip, I forget who it was now. I feel like it might have been Danny Nardiello, who, when he was coming through at Manchester United, he got to the point where he was like, right, I feel like I want to move out on my own. So Alex Ferguson made him go and work in the canteen at Carrington and learn how to cook. Fergie was a genius. Someone has to take responsibility for all of that again at Manchester United. Teach them financial literacy, media training, nutrition, how to cook a fucking meal. Ajax's Academy building has a fully equipped kitchen as part of their teaching space. So they're teaching players how to cook healthy meals and understand the impact that nutrition has on their performance. I think Manchester United should do the same. The player development centre at Carrington should house classmates, a library, maybe sleeping pod areas, which I know they've already got, but expand that into the academy as well. That facility will be visually and functionally there as the educational heart of the training ground, just like the way Ajax have situated their academy school at the centre of the complex. It's symbolic of the sort of development that they're trying to instill. A kid that looks out from his classroom can see the first team pitch, a reminder that that's what they're working towards. And they could be playing there. And then have a clear pathway into the first team. Possibly one of the most important things is that we establish a transparent pathway for academy players into the first team squad. United fans love nothing more than homegrown players starting in that first team. On one hand, it saves you so much money, but there's a connection with those boys when they're breaking it through. Whoever's sporting director should make it their duty to work with the manager to ensure that he's just got a tidal wave of the most talented youngsters and he understands his responsibility in giving them opportunities. Maybe you institute like a bit of a rule of thumb. Every pre-season, 2 or 3 academy players are in every single matchday squad before they've made their first team debut, just so we can get a real good look at them. Maybe the under-23 reserve team needs to be refocused on purely transitioning players into senior football, rather than stocking that with players that are hovering around 20, 21, 22. Maybe it should be looking at 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, players that are maybe more integrated into men's football. If you're in your early 20s and you're still at Manchester United, we probably need to be having honest conversations about your future, whether that's a loan or whether that needs to be moved on. We cannot allow the pathway to be clogged up. There needs to be quarterly talent ID meetings with academy heads and the first team coaches looking at who's ready next. How far away is he? What does he need to do to be given an opportunity? That lets the prospects then know what they need to be doing to start being considered. It aligns everybody's expectations. And by aligning those expectations, a young player will know exactly what they need to do to achieve that promotion. And I bet once you lay out in black and white, here's the 10 things I need you to start doing in your game before you get a debut, I think people start to check those boxes. Our academy needs to combine the best of traditions and innovations. It needs to be a family culture with emphasis on the youth of Sir Alex and the Matt Busby days, with the science and modern techniques of clubs like Ajax and Dortmund and others. I think in 5 or 6 years, you could yield a new class of the 2020s, a group of homegrown players that form the backbone of Manchester United going into the next decade, supplemented by those smart signings. Sustainable pipeline not only serves transfers and cuts to cost, but it cements the identity of the club, something that money cannot buy. This has ended up way longer than I thought it was going to be, so this is going to have to be split up into a second part. In the next part, I'll start looking at the loan strategy, club partnerships, and all of the other things that needs to go into this, sports science and culture and everything like that. But cheers for tuning in. Give us your thoughts, and I'll do part 4, part 2 in the next one. See you in a bit. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.